Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm Timber Smith, and I'm the DEI coordinator of Appleton.
Hi, I'm Andy Anam. I'm the communications manager at the City of Appleton, and welcome to Appleton Engage.
This is our first episode, y'all. We're kicking it off. We're super excited to do this. So know this is a labor of love and a work of progress. So we're going to continue to grow and change as we create this. To give you a little background on Appleton Engaged, so Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, to work, and to play. So whether you're a longtime resident or you're just getting to know Appleton, we want you to join us as we learn more about our community together. What do you think, Andy?
Absolutely. The goal is to give you the stories of Appleton, and we are so much excited about this first episode of the podcast.
Yes, I'm hoping that this becomes like an audio hub of our resources because we're such a resource-rich area here. And the one thing I think is missing is we don't always know about all these resources. So I just think this is a great opportunity. So what makes me even more excited than us kicking off this podcast is our first guest. Our first guest is Tami McLaughlin. How are you doing, Tami?
I'm doing great, Timber and Andy, and it is an honor and a joy to be your first guest.
Hey, thank you very much. Tami is the director of World Relief Fox Valley. Did I get that right?
You sure did.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you think you know the names of organizations and then you're way off. And
Not
then-
this time, Timber. You were right on.
Okay, we'll take that. All right, so let's jump in. Can you please tell us a little something about yourself and what's your association with Appleton and the surrounding Fox Cities area?
I've lived here 10 years, but was a resident or a native of Wisconsin, born and raised in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Left after college and lived around the country for over 30 years.
Yeah?
And recently came back 10 years ago to Appleton to fulfill the Director of World Relief Fox Valley position. So it's great to be back in Wisconsin, my favorite state in the country. And I can say it's the best state because I've lived in so many of them previously.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. So before you go into and explain a little bit about what World Relief Fox Valley is, prior, what were you doing? Like, how did this come to be?
My husband and I and family were Marriott hotel transplants. So we lived all over the country with Marriott. And I had retired early on from Marriott to raise our two daughters, but decided to go back to work and started with World Relief in Atlanta. That was the last stop. That was our last place we lived before moving back to Wisconsin.
Oh, so World Relief is nationwide.
World Relief is a global organization. We do a lot of work internationally. We have about 15 offices here in the States, and Atlanta was one of them, and Fox Valley is one of them also.
Wow. Okay. So can you please share with us about World Relief? You know, what do you do? Like, what do you really do? Who do you serve? What's the mission? What's your purpose? All of that.
Well, if anybody's heard of World Relief here in Appleton, let's just use local example, they would probably say, oh, World Relief is the refugee resettlement agency. And that is what we do. We resettle refugees who come through the United States Refugee Admissions Program. However, we feel like we have much more aspirational purpose and goals in our work. And we like to define it in 3 buckets. And the first bucket is we provide direct services, and we do that mostly for newly arriving refugees. And those direct services involve securing housing for them, enrolling them in schools and English classes, enrolling them in employment services so they can eventually find jobs. So all the things that when they first get here they need to do to really move forward and move from a position of just surviving to thriving and moving forward and making this their home. That's what we do to provide the vital services. We also like to think that we build just and welcoming communities. So on the side of refugee resettlement and working with them directly, we also work with our community that we're a member of. And justice requires advocacy, just advocating, educating the community on refugees,
Right.
who they are, why they're here, why they belong here, why we want to help this place called Appleton become a home to them. So that's a second bucket that we really very much are involved in and place a lot of emphasis on. And the third, equally, if not most important, is we partner people together. So one of our top purposes and desires for every refugee who we welcome to the Fox Valley is that they're partnered with a community member, volunteer. It could be a team of volunteers, a group of volunteers, but we feel that that is equally as important in everything we do to make sure that the refugees have somebody to walk alongside of them, who helps them feel like they have a friend here, who helps them feel, again, like they're welcome here, who helps them feel like they belong here. And ultimately, that's what we're hoping for these people that we're welcoming.
Tami, this sounds so inspiring. So why don't you share a narrative? Our listeners, I'm sure, would love to learn more about the work you do, and if there's a narrative in your mind which you want to share with our listeners.
I think the most important thing out of all this is the comments that we get back from the volunteers and the established and the welcoming community about what this means to them.
Ooh.
For the first time ever in the history of our office, when we went through the Afghan resettlement, we resettled 182 Afghans, and that was in a very short amount of time. And the Fox Valley stepped up and stepped into this resettlement process. And for the first time in the history of our office, we were able to pair every person with a volunteer. And the responses and the comments that we got back from our volunteers and our groups who walked alongside were, this changes me. This made me realize how much I have to learn. This made me realize that these people equally have to teach me as I helped them. And this changes the face of our community. This changes the response of our neighbors. And I feel like this is an experience that everybody should have, is just be able to welcome new neighbors and new community members and realize the impact that it has on ourselves as individuals and ourselves as the community.
Absolutely. And that's incredible. And kudos to you for working so hard and making that change. So you are kind of a difference maker for the city, and that's what makes you special for us as well. So are there any upcoming initiatives, events, or engagement opportunities which you want to share?
Yes, World Refugee Day is acknowledged around the world, and it's to commemorate refugees, who they are, bring awareness to who they are, why they're here. And so we want to celebrate also here in the Fox Valley. The actual day is the 20th of June, but we are having a celebration in Oshkosh this year. We change our celebrations. We move them from Oshkosh to Appleton every year because both communities receive refugees.
Okay, you cover both communities.
We do in Menasha and yeah, all the small communities in between is where we're placing refugees, but mostly Oshkosh and Appleton. Okay. So we're having a picnic celebration, and we're having some speakers and some presentations and food trucks, and everybody will be provided a meal, and it'll just be a great sense of a community.
I love food trucks.
Yes.
No.
You had
Me too.
You had me at food trucks.
Caribbean and egg rolls.
Oh,
how's
my.
that?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure our listeners will definitely come down to that event. And yeah, you cannot miss that, right?
Yes.
So I know because we've had the opportunity to engage a little bit. When you bring in refugees, and who are our main populations of refugees that we have currently in Appleton? Who's the newest? Who's more established? And there's a time frame in which your organization engages with these families. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The largest population in Appleton is the Congolese population, and we would expect that to continue to grow. We're seeing the strife and the chaos in the Democratic Republic of Congo continue, and people are continuing to flee. And maybe I should have started with the definition of refugee. It's somebody who's had to flee their country for fear of war, persecution, or violence. So the refugee groups that we see coming are from those countries that have created and been subject to great chaos. And our population is Congolese. You like to grow a population, so you have the language skills, so you have community amongst the refugees, so they can build up as strong community also. So we do tend to see larger numbers of one group versus a lot of little groups, if that makes sense. So Congolese and Afghans and Burmese are our top three communities that we're settling, but we would expect to see the Congolese continue. And in terms of services, very intense and involved the first 90 days. And that's when we do a lot of those initial enrollments, screenings, those types of things. Next, after that, is employment. So then we focus on employment, and sometimes that can be a couple months, even longer. If people have to change jobs, they'll come back to us, maybe a year or 2 years later. So there's kind of an ebb and flow depending on individual circumstances of how we're serving them and when we're serving them. But first 90 days for initial services, then employment. 1 year later, we welcome people back for immigration legal services. Refugees can apply for permanent resident status 1 year later, and 5 years later, they can apply for citizenship. So, which is a huge marker and milestone. So we see, again, people, different circumstances, different times, depending on how we can serve them and the ability that we have and what their needs are.
How often does it work? Just work smoothly, and this refugee population is able to work towards, and I'm not 100% sure if they want to become citizens, but I'm thinking that maybe that's a goal. Does that tend to be a goal, and how often does it end up happening, and how often does it work well?
Citizenship requires studying, being able to pass a test, being able to speak English well enough there's also a verbal examination in citizenship, and most strive for that. And I believe one of the reasons they strive for that is it's a place to belong. Nobody wanted to leave their country. They had to leave their country for fear of losing their life. So it was a decision: do I stay and possibly lose my life, or do I leave and hope that there's something, better, that there's opportunity ahead? And I think these refugees have given up the hope of going back and being able to live safely in their countries.
Right.
So the citizenship gives them the benefit of feeling like they belong to another country. They've earned that, and they work hard. And I think most refugees can probably pass the test better than I could pass the citizenship test, if you want to know the truth. They work hard, and they're dedicated to it. And again, a huge milestone to become a citizen, but still the grief of the loss of losing their country and home. And so many of them have lost family members,
Absolutely.
have lost their professions, have lost everything they had and had worked towards. So this is an opportunity and a marker to say, I'm going to be okay. I'm in a place that I can do okay. Have to work hard. And some of them, it's a very rude awakening of how hard America is and how hard we have to work.
Right.
But they learn that as part of the other parts of integration and the resettling process, but most do well. Takes longer for some than others, but eventually we feel like they're in a good place.
So I know that this work of helping these populations feel like they belong and acclimate into our communities, it seems like it would take a village. And so are there other organizations that you tend to work with? Who's helpful to your mission and who really shows up?
It truly does take a committee, and the resettlement process was designed and supported by our Congress back in the 1980s. They designed how we resettle refugees by the 1980 Refugee Act, and it was intentional that it was a public-private partnership and that community needed to support this effort. We feel like the Fox Valley is an amazing community. We have great relationships and partnerships, and that doesn't mean everything's perfect and everything goes
right.
well all the time. But that's the blessing of these partnerships, is we know that we can have conversations and say, what do we need to change? How can we do this better? Where can we improve? But those types of partnerships are with the Appleton School District, with the Fox Valley Literacy Council, various medical providers, Partnership Healthcare and Mosaic Healthcare, Social Security Office, the benefit providers through the W-2 agencies, the county agencies, the city of Appleton and Timber is a great support, and we appreciate your support. So just it Valley Transit and helping with
yes.
bus training and how to navigate the bus in the city. They do phenomenal training. Employers. So it just goes on in terms of organizations, individuals, groups who step up and step into this process and this partnership. So we appreciate every one of them.
I was thinking, does I hear our faith-based community really participates heavily in this? Where do they fit?
We are a Christian organization, as are many of the resettlement organizations. There's 10 nationals. We're one of 10, World Relief is. So that's not unusual. Some people think, well, how can you be doing government business, because it's a government program, and be a faith-based? But again, the government recognizes that it is important and not exclusively faith-based.
Right.
But what World Relief has a model called the Good Neighbor Team, and it's a team for churches, because a lot of times there's a group in a church established already. So a group from a church will walk alongside an arriving family. However, again, not exclusive to the faith-based. We have a community group who's a good neighbor team. We have volunteers who might not be teams. We call them friendship partners, maybe 2 or 3 volunteers who want to walk alongside a welcoming family, or maybe an individual. We see singles arrive also, which was really difficult. Often feel isolated and don't know anybody. So that's extremely important that we pair volunteers with them. So we're not exclusive to that, but because we're a faith-based organization, we've created a model for the churches, and it works well the way we train, the expectations, how we also serve the community, the church groups. Volunteering is not easy when you often don't know the systems. A lot of our volunteers don't take the bus. Right. They've never applied for a Social Security card.
I can only imagine.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tough as an American.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
As a resident, to navigate some of these, and I can only imagine coming from another place and then trying to navigate. Oh my!
Well, and imagine if you're trying to help somebody who speaks a different language.
Oh yes,
that's an even greater barrier. So just encouraging people to, things don't always go well. You didn't get the point across that you thought you were getting across, but you smile and try again and again. That's where these deep friendships are formed, with the volunteers and with the new arrivals. And again, learn from each other. And that's what we think is the best part about these relationships.
So we are kind of growing with them as a community, right?
Absolutely.
So is there anything the community can do to be more helpful in this regard and kind of take some of your work off your plate and help you?
Volunteering is amazing. We love our volunteers. We do train. We ask people to go through an onboarding process and do some training, so they understand again the background and requirements and it just cultural orientation with volunteers. So volunteering as a group or as we have friendship partners, so one or two people. We have transportation needs. We have some drivers. All they do is drive.
That's wonderful.
And some housing setups. When we have to get ready for somebody to arrive and prepare their house, we have move-in specialists. And all those opportunities are on our website, and that's a great place to start if you're interested.
Okay, well, since you've brought it up, can you share the contact information? How do people reach out to be helpful from the community? Websites, phone numbers, any good contact information? Can they follow you? Is there social media to follow?
Yep, World Relief Fox Valley is Google, website, Facebook. You can call our office reception number that's on the website. Yeah, stop by our office. We're on 510 Wisconsin Avenue and ask questions, get to know us. So a variety of ways to get involved and just to get to know us.
What I will make sure that we do is we will put the contact information in the podcast episode notes so people can find it, because I'm thinking after people understand so much more now about World Relief, there's going to be people who want to be helpful.
Thank you. I hope so.
Totally, I agree with my friend Timber here, and this is an incredible work you're doing, and I'm sure we are so lucky to have you in our community, and thank you so much for everything you do.
And you also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Wait, there's one more thing, Tami, before we let you off the hook.
Uh-oh.
Well, we're just going to give you the opportunity. I'm big on recognition, so you get some shout outs if you would like. Is there anybody you just want to send quick shout outs to in the community? Oh,
There's so many thoughts going through my mind, and again, I think of Amy Swick in the Appleton School District, and Mosaic, Jackie Gonzalez at Mosaic, and the partnership team, and Valley Transit, Sarah Schneider, and I don't do the direct work as much, so I'm not sure of the direct people that we work with. There's so many of them, but please, I hope that isn't exclusive, because there's so many. And also probably at the top of the list is just the Fox Valley team. They work really, really hard to try and serve our refugees well. They work really hard to try and serve our partners and volunteers well. And they have the heart and the passion to do this work, and it's hard work. So I'm very, very thankful for the team that we have in the Fox Valley World Relief Office.
Hey, thank you, Tami. We're thankful for you and your team. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping it up real quick. Once again, this is our first episode. We are a work in progress. We would love to hear from you. Let us know how we did. Let us know if you would like to be on Appleton Engaged. Please share the podcast. You can reach out to us at diversity@appleton.org. Once again, diversity@appleton.org. And also, if you think you might really like this, because we're going to have great guests. We've got a ton of great guests from the community lined up in the near future. Please subscribe to the podcast. That way we know, hopefully, that people are out there actually listening.
Totally, Timber. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Appleton Engage, and we are so grateful to Tami for joining us today and sharing her stories and her contribution to the community. And so until next time, stay engaged, stay connected, and continue making a difference in our wonderful community.